Okay, so I just watched Superman last night and I wanted to collect my thoughts and have a little debrief because, as you saw from my reaction at the start of this video, I cried and I was screaming and everything, and oh my gosh, I had so much fun and I was so happy. So I wanted to give a little recollection and remember my thoughts. I went to go watch the movie with my friend Colin, and right after, as it ended, I immediately started bawling. And he turned to me and he said, "We are so back." And those words ran true. I truly feel like superhero movies are back. I'm finally starting to have fun again watching, and as like a huge MCU, DC, EU, and comic book fan when I was a kid, oh my gosh, I feel like we are back. Like, we are finally in a time where I am excited to go watch a movie, and I come out of the theater happy and excited and just like wanting to see more. And it's just been a while. So I wanted to capture some of these thoughts, not necessarily talk about the plot like front to back, back to front. I wanted to talk about the actors, the feeling, and just everything about the film that I really, really loved. I also hope you like my outfit because I thought I'd do a little Superman theme with the blue red top, and I'm wearing gold jewelry to represent the yellow. First and foremost, this movie understood Superman at its core. It understood who Clark Kent is and how he's not this like god-like figure here to rule the world, but he is this wholesome, all-American, like boy next door kind of guy. And he grew up on a farm. He grew up in such a wholesome, happy, joyous environment, and he is just so morally good. He just represents the right thing to do no matter what. And although that has led to him being kind of a flawed character in some regard, especially in that scene where he and Lois had that interview, I think it just showcased who he was. And James Gunn, thank you, James Gunn, you really just understood the character through and through. If you see me reading, I have a couple notes that I took for the movie, so this video is not an hour long of just me saying how much I loved it. But I loved how this movie kind of jumped straight in. It was a very smart decision because we've watched superhero movies for years and years now. It's not a new concept. I don't need to know the origin of Superman. I've been knowing the origin of Superman since I was a very young kid. Man of Steel was probably one of my first ever crushes. Love you, Henry Cavill. But as I became a fan and as I read the comics and I watched more media beyond just the Snyderverse, you realize that Superman doesn't kill. He's a good guy. So I really appreciated how they trusted that you already had some semblance of an idea of who Superman was, what his origins were at least. So we didn't have to watch like another scene of his spaceship crashing down, his parents finding him, blah, blah, blah. Because through and through, you know the character. You don't need to see it again. And we got to see him in action right off the bat. Also, spoilers, by the way. I probably should have said that at the start, but full spoilers. The movie kind of opens with him already kind of in an action scene. He's already been a superhero for the last 3 years. He works at the Daily Planet. Him and Lois are already dating, so there's no secret there, which I think that was kind of something that people used to always make fun of like, oh, he has glasses on, that's why people can't tell. Lois already knows, she's a smart woman, and they're together. And let's just talk a little bit about their relationship. I found it so believable. Rachel Brosnahan did a fantastic job portraying Lois Lane. I truly feel like she is the best Lois I've seen so far. And this is just kind of referring to the movies. She's a smart character, a smart lady. I loved this actress since watching her in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I was so excited when she got picked for Lois Lane because she can kind of do it all. Like, the way she turns it on, the way she articulates herself, the way she talks is just candy to my ears, and it's amazing to listen to. And I felt the chemistry. I felt like they really did have a thing for each other, you know? And it was kind of a bit of a situationship. I know I'm using very colloquial terms, but situationship at first, but it felt like something you wanted to root for. You wanted them to get together like a full happy couple and a full relationship. So it was nice seeing that progression. And it was so sweet seeing how Clark Kent was able to elicit this joy every time he saw Lois, how giddy it made him, how excited he was to see this woman that he loves. And I thought that the Lois Lane character really grounded him to reality, you know, like he can have very normal human relationships because at the end of the day, he grew up as a normal human. Although he has these godlike powers, he still loves the same. He still treats everyone the same. He has friends and he's not like this stoic figure. So I love that about this movie. I think you can't really talk about this movie without mentioning the semblance of war that was happening and how it very much relates to what was happening in the modern day right now with Israel and Palestine. And I think James Gunn did a really great job at not like politicizing it to an extent, but also really taking a stand. And I feel like Superman has always been political. If you read the comics, he basically came from war as the sign of like hope and justice and the American way. And it's clear to know that Superman would fight for those who are oppressed. That's who he is. Lex Luthor, and oh my gosh, I love Nicholas Holt. I think he is a fantastic actor. I saw him when I was a kid from the X-Men. I loved him in Juror Number 2 recently. I watched Nosferatu, him in The Great. The Great is his magnum opus. That TV show is fantastic. And Nicholas Holt is such a good actor. Also in The Menu, but he plays this asshole character really well, but it's still lovable and believable, and you want to like understand him and root for him in some regard. So when he gave that monologue about wanting to kill Superman, it made sense, because I think in all of us you can identify the sense of like jealousy or envy, and it's hard to combat. It's a strong emotion, and personally for myself, it has been a motivating factor along with ego for a lot of the things I do and pursue. Obviously it's something I'm trying to work against, not be my North Star, and I want my North Star to be more for just goodness sake and for joy and happiness. But it's unavoidable that in some regard you will feel these things, and whether it motivates you or not, like how it motivated Lex Luthor, you can understand. I also loved how Lex Luthor was really truly intelligent. You believed that he in this movie memorized like, what was it, 250 moves or whatever, and was able to watch this fight live. And you know how he, of course he cloned Superman, why not? Like, that is the person he is. He's this mastermind villain and he has the brain capacity to be able to defeat Superman if he had the same abilities, but because he doesn't, he uses his intelligence, and he uses the technology he's created to defeat Superman, from creating these pocket universes, gathering his resources, being smart, learning Superman's movesets, cloning him, attacking him, all that. And you could very much believe as an audience member that Lex Luthor could win because he's just so smart. But there's also that very clear lesson that because of his ego, because of his envy, it really clouded his judgment, and that's kind of why he lost at the end of the day. He was so deep in the detail of things and so focused and so siloed in his goals. Speaking of the pocket dimension, the character Metamorpho I thought was really interesting. I didn't know it was played by Anthony Carrigan because he's such a funny guy. I loved the show Barry, and he played Hobo Hank, and it was like just the most hilarious thing in the entire world. So I'm glad to see him in a Superman movie. There were also just some really great moments for the fans. They included the Fortress of Solitude, which was awesome. Like, you got to see that, you know, in the comics, and I get to see it on the big screen, which is incredibly cool. We got to see the dog. I have a dog, so it was awesome to see Crypto in this movie, Supergirl at the end, which I'm hoping to see maybe like a movie of her, like a spin-off or whatever. The John Cena Peacemaker cameo, that was also incredible. I loved the Peacemaker series. I don't know, I'm kind of just naming things I really enjoyed because it was awesome. Like, this movie was fun, and Superman is finally universally loved, which is great. The relationship, I know I touched on the relationship already, but I just loved their chemistry. I loved how believable it was. I loved when Rachel Brosnahan's character was able to kind of grill Superman in that interview scene in the beginning, and their fight seemed genuine. I'm in a relationship, and I feel like when I was watching that, I can almost relate a lot to what they were saying, and like how difficult it can be to really understand each other as humans. That's why we seek help and we go to therapy and we learn about ourselves to be able to communicate better. And no matter if you're this like alien with incredible superpowers like Superman, he is ultimately so human that he has these petty arguments at times. And I think that just really made me connect to him. David Corenswet, I was honestly a little bit skeptical when they first casted him because, you know, Man of Steel was one of my first loves, and I loved Henry Cavill. I thought he was so cool, but I thought he did a really great job. And I watched interviews of him, and he seemed like an actual sweetheart, like a really good guy through and through. So I thought, you know, incredibly believable. He is Clark Kent at heart, and you know, what I have wanted to see more scenes of him as Clark with his parents in Smallville, yes, but he was Clark Kent the whole time too, like in the suit. There was no difference and shift in personality from Superman to Clark. It's him, it's who he is. That ending scene where instead of him listening to the message of his parents, he watched his memories and recollections of his childhood with his adoptive human parents. Oh, that was so sweet. And how his good and wholesome upbringing with these two amazing moral parents made him the man he was. And he did not need to listen to this message where his birth parents gave him to tell him to like roll over this world to choose what to do, because he had actual good examples. From what I know, his parents from Krypton always sent him to Earth for a benevolent cause. So I thought this change was really interesting, but it was fresh and it made sense because it allowed him to kind of develop his own moral compass. He realized that ultimately he is good for himself. There is just him and what he knows that is guiding him, not what some Kryptonians told him years and years ago. I believe those are all of my thoughts for this movie. I loved it. I want to see more. I want to see more of the actors. They all did amazing. I feel like this is not the last we've seen of David Corenswet. I didn't even touch on the Justice Gang. Like, they were also incredibly funny. Mr. Fantastic was great. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt so happy, and that's why I literally teared up. I cried. I ran through the theater. When it finished, I thanked the staff. I don't know, I'm so embarrassed now looking back, but like genuinely just, it gave me so much joy and optimism, and it reminded me of when I watched movies as a kid. And the last time I cried was actually a year ago when I watched Deadpool and Wolverine, because I love the X-Men. Days of Future Past is one of my favorite films of all time. So just being able to finally see movies that are fun, exciting, nostalgic, and just overall a joy to watch has been amazing. And I hope we continue seeing superhero movies like this. Alrighty, bye!